Thanks for staying with us. So, the country's first fight against COVID-19 is still very much on. We have with us the Director, Disease Control and Immunization at the National Primary Health Care Development Agency, and the agency is responsible for the managing of our vaccine program. We have with us Dr. Basi Oposen. Good morning, sir. Are you there?
Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
Yes. So before we even go ahead into COVID-19 and the updates, we read recently that they had to destroy millions of vaccines that were brought into the country because it expired. How are we doing with vaccines right now? How do we ensure there's no repetition of this going forward where we have to destroy vaccines? Is it that people are not taking it, or is it that it wasn't properly distributed? What happened that it caused that destruction of the vaccines?
Okay. I know this is going to be an interesting discussion. When you initially say we are going to discuss Omicron, I heard how we all laughed. And for the vaccines specifically that you have mentioned, I think I want to first of all start by sincerely commending His Excellency the President, the Minister, the Secretary of Government, the Executive Director of the agency, Dr. Faisal, for the effort they are making us, supporting us not to allow vaccines waste in Nigeria. Recall, we started vaccination around March. We've had several vaccines that have come in. The thing that has been happening is that these vaccines come with very short shelf life. And the ones that came in March, April, May, we've always exhausted what has come in. That particular batch of vaccine that came in with 7-week shelf life, about 2.8 million doses. And we know our daily consumption rate. When the vaccine came in with 7 weeks shelf life, of course, NAFDAC, we can't use it immediately. We'll also have to do the analysis and ensure that these vaccines are safe before we give to Nigerians. Recall again the fact that as a nation, we don't buy, is from the COVAX facility and donations from the civilized world that sent to the country. So when they sent that particular batch that came in from the word go, we had told them that the quantity that was coming in, the executive director made it very clear, the minister made it very clear that that batch was short. We are going to have just 3 weeks to use in country. And why I consulted with commending our principals for the support they are giving to make sure that we use the vaccines, because in most other countries, the wastage would have been more than that. We use more than 70% of that vaccine. Okay. The prediction when they even gave us that particular batch was that we will not use up to 40%. Wow. But we made use of up to 70%. And again, recall, as a country, the day it was close to the expiry date, we stopped using the vaccine because we need to have the best for our people. Right. And for now, as a country, we don't receive any vaccine that has less than 6-month expiry date, Great. Not the 3 months or the 6 weeks or so.
All right.
Okay, I'm just wondering, they say beggars can be choosers. Since we are begging for it, can we tell them exactly what to give us? But going back to Omicron,
Omicron.
I'm
just joking.
So the papers today, it talked about Nigerians just flouting all the guidelines that we need, that we were meant to follow, and the fear that there will be a surge. But also, many Nigerians are looking at it and saying, see, even when we get sick, we don't get that sick. Should we really be worried? Even when it happens to us, there's really nothing much. We'll just be down maybe for 2 days and we're up and running.
Okay. Look at it this way. The variants are coming one after the other. We can recall when the Delta variant hits India, what happened in India. That particular variant was terrible for India. People were collapsing on the streets and dying. Yes, Omicron has come. We can see the waves in some other countries, how people are already closing up and not allowing people to go out. We need, as a nation, to achieve herd immunity so that if for any reason we are exposed to any variant, we know the severity for any reason will be less. We don't know what variant will come tomorrow, because knowing that pandemics like the COVID-19 come in waves, looking back at history, We don't know which other variant that will come, that the severity will be the type that will be dangerous for Nigerians. I want to plead with Nigerians, we shouldn't take this thing for a joke, because I've had opportunity to talk with some people who say, is this COVID-19 really a real? I've had opportunity to talk to people that are even enlightened, and they're telling me, oh, if the vaccines you are having are good, why should we be taking more than 2 doses of vaccine? And sometimes I tell people, one, we need to achieve herd immunity. Once we achieve herd immunity as a nation, definitely, whatsoever strain of the virus comes, we will not have superiority disease. 1, 2, mutation will also be less in our country. 2, going back to the history of why do we need to take more than 1, 2 doses? Go back to history. Polio vaccine is a virus that causes polio. The vaccine, we give our children the birth dose, that is 0 dose. We give them the first dose at 6 weeks. We give them the second dose at 10 weeks. We give them another one at 14 weeks. Then we give supplemental one that follows. It's a virus. In measles also, we are giving our children measles vaccine. Once you give 100 children measles vaccine, 85% of them develop 100% immunity at first administration. You give them an opportunity for a second dose, you have 95% of them develop. A third opportunity, 98% of them develop herd immunity. So, guys, Nigerians, these vaccines we are having are safe. We need to protect our nation and return back to normalcy.
Okay, go ahead.
What is the PTF, that's Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, what are they doing exactly to ensure that the restrictions, especially on crowding of events places, are curbed and enforced? Because what we saw in December is that we sold out every event, places, and, you know...
Dirty December.
And we dirtied the December, you know. And it seemed like government officials just on the blind eye. Are we really fighting? Are we really enforcing the restrictions? Or are we just paying lip service so that when we come, we say people should and leave them to them?
You know, thanks for this question. I was listening to the session just before this session, what is happening in Rivers. Once there's an enforcement, you hear more persons kicking against the enforcement. You hear more saying, we don't want this to happen. The Presidential Steering Committee, chaired by the Secretary of Government of the Federation, is doing a lot, being supported by Mr. President. They are trying to do a lot of things. We have started with the workspace, where the mandate is there. If you're a federal civil servant, please take your vaccine so that you don't come to the workplace and pollute others. We need healthy workers. You bear me witness, a lot of people are already talking on that. They have engaged, the PSC have engaged the governors, who are the chief law enforcement officers in their states. And me and you know what is going on in the various states, in states that even the governors are trying to enforce things to happen. A lot are happening. But I want to plead with Nigerians, we have a role to play. One, let's believe that we can help ourselves, we can help our nation. If the government is saying, let's avoid crowds, let's not go for large gatherings, let's not organize large gatherings, it's human beings that organize these gatherings. Let it start from us Nigerians. We organize our events, taking into consideration the protocols that we have. If it's a church, we have the normal spacing, one space before the other, like I've been advised. If the mosque, the same thing. It's a wedding, we make it few number of persons using a large space, and then people coming in with their face masks. At the gate, you have the sanitizers, you have the provisions for them to wash their hands. It is for us Nigerians to help ourselves and help our nation. And that's why I really want to put it this other way, that we Nigerians should respect these policies that the government is putting in place.
Do you think, because I'm based on what you just said, and I just picked up something which is the obvious, but I'm not sure it's been really properly reiterated. The fact that the government is trying to achieve this herd immunity. So one of their strategy, it seems, is to enforce civil servants across the country to get vaccinated. So at least those are the people that are within the authority of the government. And if they get these people, all of them, to be vaccinated, maybe we can begin to have a closer approach to the herd immunity that we're looking to achieve. Now, that is in itself is not being communicated to the people, because we watch international news. Recently, I think they just enforced, I watched on CNN that they enforced that before you enter any restaurants, you have to have your vaccination cards. And they tell you the reasons, what they're trying to achieve. So we see the beginning to the end. But here they just say, federal government says, if you're a civil servant, you must enter, you don't enter the office without a card. Finish. Nobody's giving us the reasoning. Nobody's explaining to Nigerians. They're saying us the end product. So once you come, that's to get that buy-in. So we're not getting a full spectrum of what you're trying to achieve. And when you don't do that, Nigerians don't get it. They just feel like you're making up these draconian laws and saying you must be vaccinated once you're a civil servant. So do you think there's a gap in how we are communicating this issue of getting vaccinated to Nigerians?
Okay. Thanks for this question. And I want to say thank you to TVC for giving us this opportunity to also use it to plead to Nigerians. You know, when you come to the federal government offices, a lot of things are going on to enforce this. But we shouldn't allow us to get to this point if we understand the basic fact that if 70% of the eligible adults in Nigeria take vaccine, we will achieve herd immunity as a nation. And once we achieve herd immunity, it can stop transmission of the virus within our community, within our nation. Now, in the workplace, a lot is going on already for the civil servants. If you are entering or going to any of the offices, in fact, I'll give you an instance. In some of the offices, federal government offices, they have even changed their cards. From the gate, if you are not fully vaccinated, you cannot have access to their doors and offices. A lot is happening. We have had, and at the gates, you have the vaccination post being mounted there. It's either you take the vaccine or you show your PCR negative test within 72 hours, or you take the vaccine. If not, you go back home. You see, we, as a country, we shouldn't allow ourselves to be forced. I want to use the opportunity given to us to beg Nigerians, please, COVID-19 is real. The easiest way out for us as a nation is for us to achieve herd immunity. And from research, the fastest way to achieve herd immunity is through vaccination. I'll give you this illustration. If, as I'm here in Lagos, Abuja, I want to come to Lagos to TVC and visit TVC, I can decide to trek. Somebody trek during the election. I can decide to come with bicycle. I can come with a bus. I can come with an aeroplane. I'll be a wise person to take the option of coming with an aeroplane because I will reach there faster, visit, and then return back to do some other things. My trekking there or using motorcycle to come to Lagos, I'm not going to prove anything. A nation that will not achieve herd immunity will take them up to 10 years or above from infection and reinfection to achieve herd immunity. But once a nation is achieved 70% herd immunity, in 1 to less than 2 years, they can achieve herd immunity. Right. So for us as a nation, it's for us not to allow those forces like the government are saying doing this, and gradually we are extending it to the private sector. Also, visitors that are coming into the offices of government, if you don't have the card, you don't enter. What the PHC, like you asked earlier, is also doing is advocating to the governors to do same in their own states.
Okay.
So I think that there is a testing challenge. The cost of testing is high. Not many people can afford to, even when they have symptoms. So even the numbers we see, as enlightened people, we feel is not a true reflection. The average person will feel like, how many people say in all this our million, only 100 of something are getting it. But they don't know that we are not testing enough to have a clear figure. What exactly would you say is a challenge with our testing? How can we make testing more affordable? A lot of people have turned it into huge business and they are making it so expensive to test, which is not, you should profit, but you shouldn't profit at the detriment of a country that needs to get out of this pandemic properly. What do you think the government can do to help reduce the cost of testing and then intervene to make testing more available for the citizens?
Okay. My agency, led by Dr. Faisal Schwab, is responsible for vaccination. You bear with us, vaccination we are doing our best to ensure that it remains free to all Nigerians.
Free.
Our sister agency, the NCDC, is responsible for testing. I think these are discussions that are ongoing, and I can assure you after this meeting, I'm sure they're also listening. We'll still take up a discussion with them through our chief executive, Dr. Faisal, to see, like you rightly put, how these charges for testing can be reduced and made affordable to Nigerians so that we can have more testing. You see, the same thing that is happening with testing is an option that would have happened with vaccination. When the vaccination, we got the first few doses, we had a lot of pressure. The executive director, the minister had a lot of pressure that the vaccine should not be free and we should be so. And of course, the executive director and the minister stood firm and said, as far as COVID-19 vaccine is concerned, it will be free to all Nigerians. And so it is still today. And nobody, they don't have any plan for anybody to pay for vaccination. It will remain free. So what you've said is right. There's limitation to people not going for the testing. We'll also still take up this discussion with NCDC to see how our sister agency can also work on this to bring it down.
Recently, I had someone who took the two second vaccination already contact COVID. And so the argument started, and those who didn't want to take the vaccine had an excuse, a strong one for that matter, to say that the vaccines were not effective. What do you have to say to this?
Okay. You know what I will say to this? I will just use a simple illustration. A child who has taken measles vaccine before and contacts measles again, right? Remember I mentioned earlier, if you give 100 children first dose of measles, 85% of them will develop lifetime immunity. They will never come down with it. 15 are still left.
Okay.
If you give them a second opportunity, 95 of these 100 will develop 100% immunity. The difference between the child who has taken measles vaccine before and the one who has never taken measles vaccine, when they contact the virus, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
For a child who has taken the vaccine before, the child will just come with mild fever, mild rashes, still playing, go to school. But a child who has never taken the vaccine before, you will be begging that child to eat. And of course, no other things that will happen. So the same thing with COVID. COVID is a virus.
Dr. Bassi, based on the example that you just said, how many vaccines does a child take for measles? Because now we're having third booster and all of that shot. So the argument continues for those who are against vaccination.
Give us an example of polio.
Okay, look at it this way. Measles, we now officially, before, remember, it was only one dose. But now officially for measles, we have 2 doses.
Yeah.
And then a booster at 5 years.
Yes.
Then for polio, remember for now, for children polio, for a child to be fully vaccinated, polio is a virus that causes it. For a child to be fully vaccinated, it will take 4 oral, 1 IPV injection, 5 doses. We are just starting with the COVID vaccine. The COVID vaccine, first dose from the research is showing about 62 to 67 protection. You give a second dose, it goes about 80 to 89. So with the booster that is coming in, it gives opportunity. And remember, the vaccines that we're having now, and I will give you a statistic, if you look at the NCDC website, to confirm this other fact that it is the same pattern of what we are seeing in measles, is the fact that 91% of mortality, like we have, as of today, we have 3,050 persons that have died in Nigeria, officially recorded, and 244,120 cases reported. Of course, me and you know is underreporting, we have more than that. But for death, we have the 3,050 persons that have died. 91% of these persons that have died are people who have never taken the vaccine. The remaining percent of people are those who are taking one dose not yet complete and have comorbid conditions. About only 0.5% are people that have taken like 2 doses. And of course, with the booster dose, it gives a greater opportunity. I will advise people, I'll give you another example. I have a friend, a colleague, classmate in those days who is a CMD in a big reference hospital. When I asked him to take the vaccine when the first dose it came. He refused. We sent vaccines to their hospital. 60% of their staff took the vaccine, 40% did not take. When that hospital, let me use the word in quote, was visited by COVID, 80% of those persons that did not take the vaccine were down with the virus, and they lost 9 of their staff.
Wow.
None of the staff that took the vaccine was admitted. He was the one that ran away from the hospital. He was now looking for the vaccine. I had a call from him. I had won the vaccine. I said, you want the vaccine? He said, what happened now? What has changed? He now gave me the statistics. I said, so what makes you believe that? I said, because among the 60% of my staff that took the vaccine, none of them is down with the COVID. I have lost this number of personnel. I don't want to happen again. I need the vaccine. He saw it from his end. I've also seen so many friends who have taken their vaccine. They now tested positive. All they have done is to confine themselves to their homes for the period until they are tested negative again. The beauty of taking the vaccine is, once you take the vaccine, it stimulates the antibodies in your system. Once these antibodies are stimulated, the day the person is now faced with the real virus, there are enough antibodies in the system to fight the live virus, and the person will not come down with the severity of the disease. And for some of the people that have already developed full immunity from it, from the first, second dose vaccination, they will just test positive and nothing will happen to them.
Okay, Dr.
We still advise people, yes.
This issue of the booster. So there are different, people are asking about we saw the governor take the booster, we saw the president take the booster, but it's not readily available across board. People are having difficulty finding it. So how available are these boosters in Nigeria at this time?
Thank you for this question. As of today, we have received in country about 35 million doses of the vaccine, and then we have another 50 million doses, 55 million doses are waiting to receive. We have already been allocated. It's for the vaccines to come in. We have enough vaccines. Just last week, the agency has sent enough vaccines to all the states. Please, we want to know any of the states that will say they don't have these vaccines. We will really willingly and be happy to follow up with those states to know why they are saying they don't have, because even last week they have been given additional Pfizer vaccines, and then this week also the Moderna has also been sent to the state. We have enough vaccine. On behalf of my ED, I can make bold to tell Nigerians that as at this moment and for the rest part of the year, we have enough commitment allocation that can give us both our first, second doses and also the booster doses. We have enough.
Okay, so, could you also help us clarify if you took the AstraZeneca or a different one, you can take booster shots of another different vaccine? For now, the AstraZeneca vaccine company itself, once you take, like you are specific about AstraZeneca, if you take a first dose, you take a second dose, the study so far is that if you want to take a booster, let it be of a Moderna or Pfizer. For them, the 2 doses is enough for now, and their research have not yet come up to confirm they can give a 3rd dose of the Pfizer. If you have taken Pfizer as first dose and Pfizer as a second dose, it is Pfizer you will also take as a booster. If it's Moderna, it is Moderna you take as first dose, it's Moderna you take as second dose, it's the same Moderna you take as a booster dose after 6 months. The J&J initially was 1 dose, but from available research and statistics where it's available now, after the first dose, 2 months after, the person is supposed to take another one called the booster. So invariably, it's like having 2 doses of Johnson & Johnson now.
Right.
But whichever of the combinations of these vaccines, or whichever of the vaccines that you are taking, we have enough evidences in country now. For instance, the chairman of the Primary Healthcare Board in Lagos, the Professor Shubogun, who was also the CMD of Root, of course, we know he's a renowned public health physician, and 6 other professors across the country, the 6 geopolitical zone, have done a research already to see the vaccines we are taking in Nigeria, how effective these vaccines are. You can check it online and see what is showing, what the result is showing.
Okay, sir.
Very positive result, reaction to the vaccines that we are taking in Nigeria.
We have 2 questions from YouTube, but I want to get it right because I heard another information from another person who is also a public health person, and the person said that if you took AstraZeneca first and second dose, you can take Pfizer as your 3rd dose, but that if you took Pfizer, you must continue with Pfizer, and if you took Moderna, you must continue with Moderna. So I wanted to just be sure that was what you said, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the question we have 2 questions from YouTube. One person is asking, is it safe for a breastfeeding woman to take the vaccine? That's number 1. Number 2, someone else is asking that there's something, there's the COVID pill, the pill you take. That are we going to get that into Nigeria? And what would you say concerning taking the pill?
Preventive?
No, curative.
Curative.
Well, let's start with the
pregnant woman.
The lactating woman. As of today, across the country, 10,800,000 Nigerians have received first dose. And among this number, about 4,600,000 of them have received their second dose. And then we have had 81,032 who have received the booster as at today, as at this morning. Of this, there are also lactating mothers, pregnant women, significant number of them who have taken this vaccine along with others. We've not had any negative report because the person is lactating mother, the person is pregnant woman. This is what happened to the person. So, of course, our policy for now is very clear. There is no restriction to lactating mother or pregnant mother. If there are other conditions that the person is not strong enough and will not want to take the vaccine for XYZ reason, right? That is at the discretion of the person's physician. But for a normal breastfeeding mother, pregnant woman, nobody is stopping because the policy does not say we should not give them. So the statistics from what we have also is not pointing towards the direction that they should not benefit. Yeah. It is better to also protect them because if for any reason they come down with the COVID, like I will tell people, one of the questions you've not asked me yet, like some will say, the side effect. Now, for COVID, we've recorded about 14,000 something, and most of them are mild, from headache to weakness, or maybe abdominal pain, some 1-2 days diarrhea, pain at the site of vaccination, which is the commonest. And I ask people, ordinary milk, fish, meat, that is to make human being grow well. There are some people, if they take those things, the next minute they are in the hospital bed.
Right.
So now, if you say because of pain at the injection site, you will not take COVID-19 vaccine, then try isolation center.
Okay, let me get a few more questions in for you.
So when we talk about vaccines and testing, I think it's only natural for us to find out what we're doing as a country towards localizing our treatment for pandemic. And we've had pandemics come, maybe every 10 years, every 20 years. What are we putting in place now? Is there anything that you see the government is doing today that gives you hope that maybe the next pandemic, Nigeria will be right on top of things and we don't have to depend on donations, to
And I'd like to add to that, because I remember in the thick of this COVID, we're hearing stuff about, we're collecting samples, or they're asking for people to bring in their, was it samples of...
local
for NAFDAC, they're submitting...
Yes, we had local remedies, and then we had people that were submitting their blood, those that were the first set to get out of, that went through, they got post-COVID and survived. Antibodies.
Yeah. So can you give us an update on that, and if we're doing anything local to combat this virus?
Yeah, the president, PAC, the minister, the ED, and all the relevant authorities are actively working on this. I'm sure we are aware of the Vaccine Day in Lagos. They are undergoing the clinical trials of the vaccine. I'm sure we will soon be proud of ourselves as a nation. The team is working so hard. There was a budget in 2021, and there's also a budget in 2022 to support that production, where as a country we will also have our vaccine. So the ministry is working on that, and we will have ours come out. We also use as a nation. So
Great.
It's on trial.
All right, we have to wrap up. Thank you, Dr. Bassi. We need some good news, so I'm really looking forward to this. It would be great to have something to celebrate, that we have our own vaccine and remedies for.
We'll be the guinea pig for testing.
At least we'll have our own.
You know what? But before I go,
yes, sir.
I want to ask, is there any of the good ladies in that studio that is yet to take the vaccine?
We have all taken.
We're waiting for the booster shot.
We're waiting for the booster. We've all taken the vaccines. First and second.
The booster is available. And
I called my own local government. They told me last week that it wasn't available, but I don't want to put them on the spot yet. Let me call them again today. If they now tell me it's still not available, I'll call you back. But as of last week, they told me it wasn't available.
Please, if we have that call, we'll call the permanent secretary immediately to respond, right?
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Bass. It's been a pleasure.
And to use the opportunity to reassure Nigerians, just to reassure Nigerians, please don't allow anybody to deceive you that there is no COVID-19. It's real. The vaccine is effective. It's safe. The president, the minister, the executive director, Dr. Faisal, are doing their best to make sure that we have good vaccines available to give to you free of charge. Please, if you are yet to take your vaccine, go and take the vaccine now.
Thank you very much. That was very reassuring. Thank you. We've been hearing from the Director, Disease Control and Immunization of the National Primary Health Care Development Agency, Dr. Bassi Oposen. I mean, he told us that we have about 30 million right now. We're expecting 50 million vaccines. Come on, man. Get your vaccines.
Please.
What's your excuse? What are you waiting for? Nothing.
Let's not throw any of this away.
Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Where you expire yourself? 6 months you have.
Exactly.